We are learning more about President Trump's proposed budget for the coming year. The proposed budget reportedly calls for a sharp increase in defense spending, tens of billions in reductions to the EPA and State Department, but does not call for any cuts to Social Security or Medicare. Joseph Cirincione is president of Ploughshares and former senior vice president for national security and international policy at the Center for American Progress, and joins us now. Joseph, we heard those numbers, especially in regards, obviously, to the Defense Department, a 10% increase, $54 billion. It sounds like the idea is scale back the diplomacy as far as the State Department taking the cuts and then increase military might. Your reaction to that?
Well, if you're going to cut the money for diplomacy, you better increase the military budget because you're going to need it. The more you pull back on peaceful diplomatic means for resolving conflicts, the more conflicts you're likely to have. So this is an extreme measure. The kinds of figures we're hearing are unlike anything we've heard in decades.
And we've heard before others in the military even disagree with this concept. Even our current Secretary of Defense, NSA Chair, General Mattis, if you don't fund the State Department fully, actually Secretary of State, excuse me, if you don't fund the State Department fully, I need to buy more ammunition ultimately. The more the State Department that is put into diplomacy, the less we have to put into military budgets. So why do you think the president is calling for such a change?
Yeah, General Mattis made those comments to the Senate back in 2013, and he's absolutely right. He understands that many of our military missions, for example, in Afghanistan and in Iraq, depend on foreign assistance, depend on diplomats, depend on State Department people. You cut those budgets and you make the job of the warriors much more difficult. So that's why he's saying, just to put this in perspective, the increase that we're talking about for the Department of Defense is about $54 billion. You would have to cut the entire State Department budget, our foreign assistance budget, and the Department of the Environmental Protection Agency in order to get to $54 billion. You'd have to eliminate those departments just to pay for the increase for the Department of Defense. That is penny wise and pound foolish.
We've heard these are just the top line proposals right now. How do you expect Congress to react to this, both on the Republican and Democratic side?
Well, I think Republicans have always been in favor of more defense spending, so you're likely to get a positive response there. And any member who's got a military base in their district or in their state is probably going to support increased defense budget. But they don't want to take it from the State Department. The whole State Department, all our State Department, all our foreign assistance still comes under $50 billion. So there's not a lot of fat to cut. These kind of radical draconian cuts are not going to sit well with many members of Congress. I'd be surprised if the Congress went through with this kind of extreme measure.
You know, there was another interesting quote that I saw. It was from the former chair of the Joint Chiefs, General Dempsey, said he was asked about the most important defense issue for our security. What would that be? And he said it was the economy. And obviously the economy goes far beyond military spending. How do those two things mix then? If there are so many cuts, obviously the hope is to have a robust economy, but so much focus on this defense spending.
Well, remember, this wouldn't be a cut in government spending. You'd just be cutting some government departments and shifting it over to the military, so you're not going to get any stimulus there. The reason the chairman of the Joint Chiefs said that is that when we have a strong economy, we are not only creating jobs at home, we're creating markets for other countries who can sell to us. We're creating jobs in other places. You're worried about instability, for example, in Pakistan? Well, let's increase our trade with Pakistan, buy more of their textiles. That will help stabilize Pakistan, providing people a future. Real soldiers, the people at the head, the generals, they understand the importance of these economic and diplomatic variables in our national security. It's a mistake to think about defense as mainly military. Military is the last line of defense. You want to be leading with diplomacy, leading with culture, leading with economic engagement. That's the way the U.S. has exerted its power through the world, not primarily through military means.
We heard Sean Spicer earlier, the White House press secretary, referred just to the fact, though, that there are infrastructure concerns, that the military needs to keep up with the times, and it's obviously a long timeline. You don't just all of a sudden create a battleship overnight. Is that accurate, that there is this need, though, for additional spending?
Oh, of course, our weapons wear out, just like your car wears out. You have to take care of the military just the way you have to take care of your house. There's always a constant need of improvement, but you don't need to buy everything. Let me give you just one example. The entire State Department and Foreign Assistance budget is $50 billion, $50 billion. One weapon system that is now under consideration, a brand new generation of long-range nuclear missiles, our ICBMs, that alone costs $100 billion. Do you really need to buy every single one of them? Do you need to buy them all at once? Those are kinds of sensible adjustments the Department of Defense could make while taking care of the troops, taking care of the weapons we really need. You could save money by getting rid of these obsolete weapons from the past.
Last month, we reported on the so-called mass exodus at the State Department after President Trump took office. Do you think things at the agency have rebounded or normalized since then?
No. One of the major problems you have with this administration is they've been very slow to fill their positions. Not because the Congress is blocking them, not from Democratic opposition. That applies to a couple of cabinet positions. But we haven't had nominations from this administration for the deputy or undersecretary jobs at state, for the assistant secretary jobs at state. We still don't have deputy or undersecretaries or assistant secretaries at the Department of Defense. In other words, you've got cabinet secretaries, but they're home alone. They don't have the people they need to implement the president's policies. That may be one reason why you're rushing through with these cuts. The White House wants to get these cuts passed, put them in place before they put people in State Department or Defense who might object to them.
Joseph Cirincione, we appreciate the time and certainly the insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.